Hello, let's talk a little bit about stacking. So, stacking is really important in everyday life, in strength training, in calisthenics training, in yoga, and everything that we do. Often people complain about lower back pain, and it typically comes from a poorer posture, which is not our fault. So, it very much happens for various reasons. Particularly with women who've carried children as well, because they go into more of a kind of lordosis type position with their spine, and then it's quite difficult to come out of that. So there's a lot of force driven down here because the core is not engaged. So what we want to be able to do is to stack. On saying that, with women who've carried a child, this is a really common issue for everybody, so not just, it's just more pronounced in that particular situation, and I do it as well. So we want to practice stacking, and what that means is this little bottom half of the thorax, we want to be stacked on top of our pelvis, but typically we sit like this with a back bend and open abdominals, which can't really engage, rather than being stacked on top of one another and being able to utilize that core and protect the lower back. So we just want to practice that a little bit. So if you do that just now, you can be standing or you can be on your knees here. Typically we're just very open like this, and it's not great. So what we want to do is stack, but we don't want to come down with our shoulders like this either. So it takes a little bit of practice. So we want to align a little bit, and most of this really comes from our pelvic tilt here. So I very much so do this. I am often in more of an anterior pelvic tilt. So I just need to shift my pelvis slightly, and it's very subtle. So I just go into more of a posterior tilt without squeezing my glutes too much at the back. And in that way, I'm not dropping my shoulders down. I'm more moving my pelvis than my thorax. So now I'm engaged and I can utilize my core here. So that's really important, and we want to do that with all of our moves, and we want to practice it all the time, even when you're putting things away in cupboards and different things in the house. If you're doing anything above head, we want to be practicing that as well, or if you're lifting anything heavy. In your plank positions, anything at all that you're doing in your workouts, we want to ensure that we're in that stacked position as well. So that's what I mean when I talk about being stacked. And that really helps us to achieve our hollow hold position as well, which is really important if you're doing any upper body work. Again, planks, things like that, or if you're going into things like handstands, if you can't stack and go into a hollow hold, you're probably going to crumble. So we want to practice this. So a good place to start is with our dead bug. We want to make sure we can achieve a dead bug initially before we do anything else with our core. So if you come down onto your back here, and we have our feet off the ground and our hands pushing towards the ceiling here. So they're not lazy and the shoulders aren't on the ground. We're really pushing forward here and protracting in the shoulders. So pushing towards the ceiling. And then I'm just going to take my knees away from me a little bit. So that's ensuring that my core engages. But I don't want my back to lift off of the ground here. So if you find that your back's already lifting off of the ground, we're going to have to work on this stage here to utilize your core. So if this is already difficult, then stay here and do this consistently. Otherwise, a standard dead bug, we would take an opposite arm to opposite leg down towards the ground. So we just move and alternate as we go. And again, we don't want the lower back to be lifting off the ground here. If you can, keep the knees a little bit further away as you go, rather than bringing them straight back into the chest. But again, if your lower back is peeling up off that ground, then we've pushed it that little bit too far. So we want to be able to perform a standard dead bug before we go into a hollow hold position. If that's where your core is just now, then go with that, because if you push it too far, you're going to end up with lower back pain. We want to challenge the core, but we don't want to challenge it beyond what we can control, and then the lower back has to compensate. So you have to judge that yourself. If we're happy with a dead bug, what we can then do is start to go into more of a hollow hold. So your hollow hold is where the feet and the arms come down. So we can bring the arms back and we can bring the legs down as well. And the further away your legs or your feet are from you, the harder it's going to be. So we want to bring those arms down and away from us and bring the legs down as much as we can. Now, you might not be able to go down there, it might just be here just now, but you'll find that point where your body starts to shake a little bit, and that means your core is really struggling. So you want to stay there and let the core work, and that is your hollow hold. If you push too far beyond that, again, you're just going to compromise your lower back and it's going to be really, really sore. So find that biting point for you and consistently work on that. Once we are capable of doing that and we're quite happy, we can even bring the shoulders up off the ground to make it that little bit harder, or we can start playing about with weights. So we can have a book or a plate if you're in a gym on the legs here, and you just hold it on the legs and let the legs take that plate out and then bring them in, grab it, and then you'll take the plate or the book with your hands, etc. So you're just swapping it from legs to hands every time, going in and out of that hollow hold. So there's a couple of variations there, a couple of progressions or regressions for you. But what we want to make sure is that you find the correct level for yourself so that you are challenging your core, but that you've not pushed it too far that it's now going into your lower back. Because if that's the case, you're then going to have to go into recovery time, and it's just not very nice having to recover from lower back pain, to be honest. So be smart about it. You will progress faster in the long run if you're not constantly injuring yourself. So be very, very careful of that. It very much is your responsibility not to injure yourself here. So be sensible with all of your movements. Only progress when you are ready and comfortable to progress. And that is different for everybody. Everybody will progress at different rates. If you're consistent with your training, you will progress, but you also need to give yourself recovery time as well. So find that perfect balance. Good luck. Any questions? You know where I am, and I am always happy to help.